Still sitting in a truck seat that's older than your favorite pair of work boots? Your back has been filing complaints for years. If your seat is worn out, sagging, or just plain uncomfortable, it's time for an upgrade. Head on over to seatspecialist.com. Check out their selection of quality replacement seats built to keep you comfortable mile after mile. And don't forget to use promo code TR104U to save 10% on your order. Seatspecialist.com, because a better ride starts with a better seat.
All right, all right. It's another episode of That's Delivered. I'm your host, Ray. And today we have an exciting guest, very special guest, Jonathan Kycek, President and Business Agent of Teamsters Local 638. Jonathan has had an incredible journey within his union and the trucking world. And I'm thrilled to dig into his story, learn more about how unions can help drivers, especially new ones, better understand their rights, their benefits, and the resources that they might not even know is available. Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Ray. Great to be with you.
Excellent. I'm glad you're here. Let's get started. Well, we like to get a little background to get people to know who you are, kind of break the ice. So let's start with that. Tell us about yourself. How did the journey begin, and what was the first thing that got you involved in the trucking world?
Well, I can tell you it certainly wasn't a direct one. I'd actually graduated from North Central University in Minneapolis in 2001 with training to be a minister in the Assembly of God Church. My first assignment was up in Hallock, Minnesota, in northwest corner of the state. And while I was there, to make some extra money, I participated in two of the sugar beet fall harvests to make some extra money, and driving sugar beet truck. That was typically, picking up loads of sugar beets in the field, driving them to the beet elevators, and that was my first experience driving anything than my car. But within a few years, I ended up moving to the Twin Cities metro area for another assignment. Shortly after that, found out my wife and I were pregnant with our first kid, and that we were going to need insurance. She looked in the classifieds; they were still around at the time, or still usable at the time, and saw that UPS was hiring. So I went there, started off as a part-timer, and about 9 months or so after that, a driving position came open as a package car driver, where I spent the next 15 years wearing a brown uniform.
Wow, that's amazing. That insurance gets you every time.
It gets you every time.
Yeah, I hope they don't mess with that one, because that's what really keeps a lot of people here, I get that consistently over time, over and over again. Like, that insurance is vital. Can you share any specific experiences in trucking early on that shaped you, or how you view the industry today?
Well, I mean, just even, doing the sugar beet truck, once I had my first go around with a UPS package car, just realizing the size of the vehicle, right? Hey, you're bigger than other vehicles out on the road. And one of the first things that the company talks to you about when you come in the door, and they remind you about it every day. Hey, you need to be safe out there. And we receive good wages because we're out there making the company money, but at the same time, they're paying people because they train them in the skills to be safe out there for themselves and the public, and to do a good job out there. And that was kind of the first thing that caught my attention of, hey, you know what, that's people make the good money out there because, hey, they have a lot of impact potentially on the people around them on the road.
That's awesome. You're right. Can make a big difference if you're not safe. So, yeah, that's huge. I mean, they take that very serious there. What was your first introduction to the union? Let's get into that. Was there something that you actively sought out, or did you find your way into it just naturally over time?
I would say it happened over time. I mean, at my core, I've always been someone who cares about people, to do what it takes to improve their lives. I mean, that's one of the things that drew me to be a minister, and honestly, it's one of the things that drew me to get involved with the union.
Nice. That's a good story. And when you want to help people, I mean, you can really make a difference versus just going through just a regular stuff over and over
Yep.
again and
Yep.
trying to just get through the day.
Right.
Oh man. So was there a particular moment or experience that inspired you to get more involved? Just not just hearing about the union, but ultimately becoming a leader within the local 638.
Well, but before I started at UPS, just being a minister, we were not wealthy. We were quite poor. Even though my wife and I both went to university to gain an education to become ministers, we had to put together a series of odd jobs, just to make ends meet. But was there a specific moment? Yeah, I would say so. And I've thought about this a number of times throughout the years. Shortly after I became a driver, I was having a conversation in the parking lot one day with one of my coworkers. I remember I kept getting distracted, on my sweet flip phone I think I had at the time, because I kept getting a number of calls, and my coworker's like, "Oh, go ahead and answer that." And I was like, "Actually, I don't want to," because at that time, all the only calls I was getting was from bill collectors. And I think I said something to him about that at the time, and he said, "You know what? Don't worry. Just stick it out here, and in no time you'll be buying a house." And I kind of laughed at him. I was like, seriously? But you know what? 2 years later, when I hit full scale, not long after that, my wife and I bought our first house. And so I can say I've went back to that conversation multiple times throughout the past 20 years. UPS provided me that job to be able to make the money, but coming to that realization that the union was the one there to go and fight for those wages so I could buy the home, which, I'm still in today.
Wow. I've heard a lot of good things about how you took your job really serious. You were there and did a great job. I mean, people spoke very well of you. So man, that probably carries over into your role today as president and business agent. Sounds like a big responsibility. Can you walk us through what your role involves and what a typical day looks like for Jonathan Kycek?
Well, and it's kind of funny. I mean, I never intended, maybe nobody, I know a couple people, they intend to, be truck drivers, to be a UPS driver, but most people, that's just where they find themselves in life. And then, like you said, whether it's the insurance, the pay, they kind of find what works for them, and they go with it. They find a career. But I can say that I kind of found, getting into the union almost by accident as well. There had been a steward that was stepping down just shortly after I had started, maybe a year and a half after I had started full time at UPS, and he was stepping down, and I remember walking by the union board where the bids were the one day, and I threw my name up on it. Why? I don't know. Like it sounded fun. But he approached me, shortly after that and said, "Hey, you and Dennis Blue was his name. He signed for this to become a steward as well. I noticed you're kind of new around here. Would you like to join him and kind of be an assistant, call it a committee chairperson as a steward?" And I said, "Yeah, it sounds great." I probably didn't realize what I was going to get into as a steward anyway. But once I get involved, I loved it. I thrived on it. I love getting to help people through their issues at work. I love being able to make sure that management wasn't taking advantage of new members. I love making a difference.
Wow.
But I know this is going to sound bad, but I'm going to own this. I mean, once I realized the difference I could make, and I could see what union work was, and what I got to contribute to people's lives, kind of knew I'd eventually be sitting where I am today. I mean, it's something that, yes, it took a lot of work to get to. It was a lot of coming into work an hour before the shift every single day to meet with members. A lot of late nights working on grievances, doing other things, working on little projects just to make their lives better. But at the end of the day, those are all the tools it takes to do the job I'm currently in my right now.
Wow. That's that grassroots again. Just and then also you took the bull by the horns. You weren't afraid to get in there and get hurt or get dirty or whatever you want to call it, man. You didn't mind that, getting those battle wounds and those scars, because they would pay off. You knew that would make a difference. So, I guess, looking at that role, what was some of the biggest challenges? If you're gonna fight for the members, you faced any challenges since then at taking those leadership roles, those tasks, and tackling them? How did you fare through all that?
Yeah, well, it's there's rewards and there's challenges in every job, right? And doing what I'm doing right now is no different. But largely, they were the same things that you go through when you're a steward. The biggest reward is simple. I mean, it's making somebody's life better. Sometimes it's even just making their day better. I mean, we all have plenty going on in our personal lives, and the last thing that anyone needs is to go to work and to have some sort of added stress that they weren't asking for. That could be something as simple as making sure that a payroll error gets corrected, ensuring that their seniority is honored so that they get the job they prefer. And sometimes, the bigger things, right, of helping somebody to get their job back when they're unfairly let go. And sometimes it's not even those interpersonal things. It's about spending months in contract negotiations to make sure that we get the best deal possible for the members. There's challenges, obviously, though, right? I mean, and the biggest challenge is something that I'm reminded over and over and over, is that I can't fix everything. I don't care if you're an active member, a steward, a business agent, or the union president. There's not enough thanks in this job to make it worth it. You only do it because you want to make a difference.
Yeah, let's elaborate on that. You said some things, because that looks like a challenge. Things you can't fix. There's a lot of things that people want. The list never ends, seems like, right?
Right.
Probably like a honeydew list.
No, it is, and at the end of the day, people all want the same things. They just want to go to work. They want to be treated well. They want to get paid accurately for the time that they put in, and they want to know that it felt worth it to them at the end of the day. And there's plenty of little things that can get in the way of that. I don't think there's any one company that's any better or worse than any other company. But that's where I found the biggest benefit of working in the union, is to help smooth those things over.
So with that contract, did they have something that helped them with payroll? Someone said something about this coming in 2026 or something like that.
Yeah, and 2026, UPS is obligated via this contractual language that got put in there, that they need to have a new payroll system in there that's more transparent, that employees can actually access and see what's going on. If a supervisor makes a change on their paycheck, they're able to see that. Which, hey, we're in 2024. It doesn't matter what you're interacting with. People expect a level of transparency and what they have access to, whether it's electronically or otherwise. And people just want to know that things are getting done correctly. And I think that's, it's a small thing. It's a couple sentences in the contract, but hopefully that's the kind of thing that actually can make a real life difference, once it's implemented.
Man, yeah, you're right. I mean, I was excited to hear about that. So yeah, the union's role and how it benefits drivers. I mean, there's so many facets for drivers who may not have much experience with unions. What exactly does a union do? How should they be served by the union?
Well, I mean, simply put, at its bare bones basic. A union's there to give a voice to the workers in the workplace. It doesn't matter what that workplace is either. It can be a warehouse, a hospital, a bus, or the cab of a truck. A union is simply an organized group of workers who come together, to because they want to have a say in their wages and their benefits and their working conditions. That's the building blocks that goes back to the beginning of unionism. I think a driver, though, is a great example of somebody who can most benefit from a union. I mean, you look at a airport pilot. Why are they trusted? It's because why are airlines trusted? It's because the pilots get passengers safely to their destination. Why are school bus drivers trusted? It's because they safely get our children to and from school safely. Why are truck drivers trusted? It's because they take, as I talked about before, the biggest vehicles on the road and move goods safely. So it doesn't matter what the mode is. The employer is putting you in control of that vehicle because they're trusting your professional skills to transport, whether it's goods or people, in a safe way. Now, it's in a way that they're hopefully going to build trust with customers and make them the most money. But what are the rewards of that trust and the skill that's put on, a driver? Well, it better be that you're making a good living. It better be that you don't have to worry that your family's not going to be taken care of if they fall ill while you're on the road, so that they can just, not be able to go to the clinic. It better be so that when you get done doing that job for 30 years, that you'll be able to enjoy your retirement. I mean, there's lots of good places to work out there, but you can almost guarantee the ones that have the best wages, the best benefits, the best conditions that the unions involved in their company.
Yeah, absolutely. What's something that drivers come to you often, especially new ones, or any surprises that, in their day-to-day task about what they have to deal with when it comes to being new, or maybe even it's just something that you hear over and over again?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the most common misconceptions about unions, especially for new people coming in, and if they, hey, we're in a day and an age where, somebody likely didn't have a mom or a dad or an uncle or a grandpa who had been in unions, with the decline in unions that's been happening over the last number of years, decades even. They don't necessarily have that sort of heritage in their family. So I think one of the most common misconceptions, though, that people have of a union is that it's some sort of like separate entity, that they pay money to and that does things for them. Now, I'm sure you could draw a couple lines and connect a couple dots to make that make sense. But at the end of the day, members are the union. Yeah, there's union leadership that's given specific tasks that they need to fulfill to fulfill jobs and responsibilities. But you can have the strongest leadership around, and it just doesn't really matter if you don't have involved members. And that starts with the new members coming through the door, obviously.
Has there been times where, let's say, seasoned drivers, even with years of experience, have come to you with questions about the union, or maybe you have some examples of things they wanted to know and hadn't fully understood yet?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter whether you've been around for 4 months or 40 years. There's a lot of things that don't really come about until you actually need to know them. A couple of years ago, I spoke to a member who had been around for 40 years, a driver, and this was during COVID, and he had never filed a grievance throughout his entire 40-year career at UPS. But when COVID hit, some things changed, and they found themselves needing to file one for the first time. Now, I've used that situation with that member. It's just a small thing that happened, but I've used that situation with new members over the past few years because I think it's important to realize that even if you've never interacted with something with the union before, that don't hesitate to ask. That's why stewards are some of the most important people in the union. They're your coworkers. They're there in your workplace. They're there doing the same exact job that you are, and they're there to help you through the process. Um, I mean, and here's another thing, and Ray, I don't mean to say this sarcastically, but is that everyone has the ability to read through the contract and see what's in it for themselves. I think there's a certain comfort for drivers knowing that they have stewards and business agents who are educated in what the contract says, who are familiar with it, who work with it and know what it says. But often when I get approached by seasoned drivers, with a question, whenever I can, and this goes for seasoned drivers and new drivers, I'll open up the contract with them and go through with it, point it out where it talks about these things. And I really enjoy those moments where I hear, that's how that works, or now I get it, as they realize that, hey, this contract that, we all put a lot of work into, from the proposal process through the negotiations to the implementation of it, that those answers are all contained within that contract. Now, not all of them, but a fair amount of them. And I think that's a comfort for people to realize that they can have those answers right at their own fingertips.
Well, yeah. Yeah, they do tend to lean on each other. I mean, it's the brotherhood too. I mean, it could be a good thing, and then it also could be a detriment at the same time, because you're always looking for someone to give you the answer. Kind of goes back to school. It reminds me of.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, so man, that's good that there are people in place that they can reach out to and utilize that are doing the same job as them. So those stewards are important. I appreciate that, highlighting that.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, there's probably nothing big, but there's little things that come up all the time that you just simply don't need to interact with until you're in that moment, right? I mean, just this last week, I had a driver call me. He had sustained a workplace injury. Went in, found out that he was going to need some surgery and that he was going to be out for 6 to 8 months. Now, this has been a driver who's been around for a dozen years. He's a veteran driver. He's been a veteran unit member. But they've never been in a situation where they had a workplace injury. And so they called because they were worried, because, in the UPS contract, a driver needs 1,801 hours to earn a full pension credit in a year. And they need 1,250 straight time hours to earn like a full allotment of their vacation for the year. And so them, as they're looking at right now here in October, looking that they might be out for the next 6 to 8 months, they're looking at that and saying, how am I going to meet those thresholds? Well, I was able to point out in the contract, hey, that the employer is going to cover the first year of those hours when you're out on a workplace injury. I mean, it's a small detail. We're talking about a couple small lines in the contract, but it was a big relief, for that member.
Wow. I mean, yeah, that's a huge weight off their shoulders. I mean, they're worried about that, and then the answer was right in front of them. Man, well, that's cool that you're able to help them with that and clear that up. Man, that's great. How does the union work alongside companies and employers, or to advocate for drivers or employees, while also maintaining a strong working relationship with management? I mean, that's a little delicate area there. How do you guys balance that?
Well, it is a tricky balance to strike. I'll be the first to admit that. Um, at the end of the day, I think both the company and the union, they want the company to make as much money as possible. I mean, that was brought up multiple times during negotiations of, hey, let's try to get the most wages possible, the best benefits, everything else surrounding that with the economic package. But at the same time, you want the company that you work for to be very successful, because that's how you can get better gains in the next contract. So I think there's the same goal, but motivations are certainly different. For the company, they want to make as much money as possible, and in the case of a corporation, because they want to maximize profits for their shareholders. The workers who are actually doing the job to make the company money, They want the company to make a lot of money so they can be fairly compensated for the efforts for the work that they put in. So I mean, it's the same goal of making the company money, but the motivations are entirely different. So, sometimes it's just about appealing to everyone's self-interest. I mean, management wants at the end of the day to be able to go to their higher ups and to be able to report how their employees are performing well, that they're staying safe, that they're being as productive as possible. On the other hand, employees want to go and get the job done, to stay safe and to have some degree of, satisfaction in their work. So there's little things that go in there, but at the end of the day, it is kind of appealing to both sides' self-interest and finding the common goals that can be there. But to me, that's why it's important to have effective business agents who can help navigate that. Business agents who have done the job before, but are in a role at the union hall to be able to help navigate some of that territory that can be tricky, but it is a hard balance to strike sometimes.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's so many things that are going on too. Like, I mean, how do you even keep it all straight? Sometimes there's a lot of, I think, what they call past practices. How do you juggle all that?
Well, and that's where the kind of notion that working at the union hall definitely is not a 9 to 5 job. Hey, there's always something new happening. There's always something going on. There could definitely be a different practice that happens at one location compared to another. And as those things come up, you're trying to navigate that. And at the core of it, you're always going back to the contract. Hey, what did we agree on at the negotiating table? And you're looking at that and saying, hey, we need to stay consistent with what's been negotiated. How can we keep that all together? And so getting back to the amount of time that, most business agents have to put into their job, it is crazy because there is always something going on. They're tasked with not only knowing what's in the contract, but make sure it's being implemented accurately and correctly and fairly. But keeping track of all of the changes and the nuances and the things that can happen throughout the years. Yeah, it can be tricky.
And so instead of shying away from it, you kind of let people know, hey, it's okay that we touch on those situations and talk about it and get those conversations going. Because I mean, that's all part of the brotherhood, is to know that you can lean on each other. So that's nice that you make that available for them. I mean, that's great as a leader. That's good. Do you encounter any misunderstandings between drivers and employees? I mean, is it hard to keep the drivers or the employees happy with each other?
Well, the best thing about unions is also the worst thing about unions is that we go in there, we get high pay, we get high benefits, and we try to create a good workplace for them to work in. It is awfully easy though, and I can tell you this as somebody who is doing the job for 15 years to kind of start to take that for granted every once in a while, and to feel like, hey, the company owes me more. Well, they owe you what was negotiated in the contract. They owe you, the principle of a fair day's work for a fair day's pay. And so, it's constantly just going out, doing the job that's being asked of me, and they're going to compensate me well. Now, it is difficult too because, hey, a union's just like a family. You got a lot of different personalities. You got a lot of different things going on. You got a lot of different things that people are bringing into work before they even get to work, right? The real life at home issues. And so, yeah, conflicts can arise, differences can be had. But at the end of the day, we know that we just need to work together because we don't need to be fighting amongst ourselves. The company's already doing the legwork there to create extra difficulties in our lives. We need to be banding together, and yeah, we can have disagreements and things that can come up. But at the end of the day, that's what the brotherhood is about: coming together and going against the company as one.
Yeah, that's huge. Yeah, especially your background. When you were telling us about how you had a lot to do with your ministry and things like that. So, I mean, I could totally see that. You advocating for that. That's huge. That's great.
Well,
Um,
the one thing that I have noticed throughout the years is I think about that. Hey, I went to college, got this education, started down a career path. But I could tell you, being a minister and being a business agent aren't altogether that different. It's about listening to people. It's about investing in their lives. It's about trying to guide them to the thing that you hope is going to benefit them the most. And hopefully at the end of the day, they're sharing that with others.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Spreading that joy. Wow. Wow, nice job, man. Try to dive in a little deeper with the rights and resources and common questions from drivers. Make sure that they get those things delivered. Let's dive in deeper. The rights drivers have through the union. What are some rights protections that drivers might not realize that they have that are important to know about? You mentioned some of that contract language. There's a couple of sentences.
Well, a lot of them come down to really some of the most simple and basic ones, but like I said, sometimes you don't have to know about it till you have to interact with it. Like the principle and not just the principle. There's something called the wine garden rights that guarantee this. In the UPS contract, we have guarantees about it that you can have a steward present if you're going to go talk to a supervisor if you think you're going to have a conversation that's going to lead to discipline. Most people have had jobs outside of their union job prior to that, and that's obviously not the case. You get called into the boss's office. It's just you and the boss and probably HR involved and whatever, and it's just you against the world. We have that right, though, as union members to be able to bring in a steward. They can be an intermediary. Sometimes they're just an extra pair of ears, but always they're taking notes. They're recalling what happens, and they're able to advocate for the member in those situations. Another one is, and I know this is simple, once again, that it's not acceptable for your supervisor to treat you like crap. If that happens, you can talk to a steward and or your business agent, because we always encourage everyone to report when that happens, because if they're comfortable doing that with one person, they're obviously probably comfortable doing it with other people. And that's really one of the things that are integral to the union process is constantly working together, constantly communicating about what's going on. Because I hear that all the time from, 15, 20, 25, 30-year drivers when they have something negative happen to them. I always tell them, hey, if the supervisor is willing to go to you, a 30-year driver, and talk to you this way, what do you think they're doing to a 3-month driver? And that's why it's important to keep that communication going, because by communicating, we're also protecting, everyone else that's there. And really, at the end of the day, if you feel your rights have been violated, you have the ability to the grievance process. My shorthand for the grievance process is that it forces conversations. And, if you can't get that conversation, or if you can't get an issue solved with a simple conversation, well, it's going to force it to a bigger conversation.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. A lot of times when people think about grievances, they think like you're going to get somebody in trouble, or I don't really want to do that. I'm not like that. But like you said, it forces to draw attention to it. But let's, as you said, feel like their rights have been violated. Let's kind of hone in on that one. I mean, someone can be kind of sensitive, or someone can be just like, no big deal and let it roll off their back, but they didn't know that the whole time their rights are being violated. How do you stay balanced when you look at those situations? Everybody's different.
Well, and you just simply have to take every situation individually. I mean, I know that sounds simple, but you just have to. If there's no one definition of harassment, it's, for some people, it could be, being yelled and screamed at. Some people, they might not mind the yelling and screaming, but they're going to mind if a certain word is used during that conversation. Some people have a real low tolerance for anything, and they just want to come into work and not be bothered by anybody, to be able to go in and do their responsibilities. And if the supervisor talks to them at all, they're going to communicate sometimes that they're being harassed. So everyone has a different threshold. of what their definition of being treated with dignity and respect is. But at the end of the day, that's why we have to treat every situation individually, every member individually. Now, we still have the common principles and the common things that we've achieved in the contract that need to be upheld. But every individual has a different thing they're bringing to the table, and that needs to be honored.
That's kind of it makes me think of community. It makes me think of, well, if you know that individual's like that, whether you think it's good or bad, well, how are you going to deal with that person? And so from there on, you kind of establish a record with that individual. What if you just don't care? Then you're going to run into those roadblocks with
Right.
people. So
Right.
building that community, building those relationships with each other that you work with. I mean, you spend a lot of time there, especially in the trucking world. I mean, there's so many hours that you're spending away from home. So yeah, might as well try to get to know each other a little better. I mean, not prying, but hey,
Right.
just take an interest in the next person beside you. That's nice. Hmm. All right, I like that. So, try to give some real world examples, just trying to help people when they're saying, man, I'm trying to get some insights here on how to look at things in perspective from someone that's been through it all, like yourself. So, are there any resources or services offered by the union? It looks like, I know some of this we covered on another podcast, but whether it be legal support or training or something else, the drivers often can be overlooked, and they don't take full advantage of these resources. Let's see, what would you say to those individuals?
Yeah, and at Local 638, we're fortunate to be able to offer members a wide variety of things. And you're right, it's probably been touched on before, but I don't think we can stop touching on it because these are the things that are important. These are the bonuses of being a union members. Besides having a contract, besides having the union at your back, we have a whole wide variety of resources. Like we have a Teamster credit union here in Minnesota that people are able to join to gain extra benefit from, to get extra good loans for new vehicles or whatever it is. We have work comp attorneys. I refer people all the time to work comp attorneys because they have complications that come up with workplace injury. Now, we all hope that if somebody has a workplace injury, they go report it to the supervisor, they get the care they need, the company and the insurance and everything takes care of the situation. More often than not, though, there's complications, and we're able to refer them to work comp attorneys. We have the Teamster Service Bureau, where people can get free counseling for addiction, for depression, financial counseling, and they access to legal services. We have a wide variety of scholarships that high school seniors can apply for. And the last one, and I touch on this all the time, and I get funny looks sometimes when I'm talking to people with high paying jobs. But just because you have a high paying job doesn't mean you can't get in a sticky financial spot. And we have a Teamster food shelf in Minneapolis that can get your family through a rough patch without you having to worry about groceries. So we have a wide variety, pretty comprehensive amount of things that we can offer people. But hey, they're only as valuable as they are if people use them, and people are only going to use them if they know about them. And so it's constantly getting that word out about those things.
I mean, you think about those part-timers, there's individuals going through progression before they make that higher dollar too, that they can get a break. So yeah, that's huge. I was thinking about the scholarships. How would someone get in touch with a list of scholarships that are available?
Well, as of the time of this podcast, we're rebuilding the website, and that's one of the pages that will be up shortly. And people will be able to go to teamsters638.com. There will be a scholarship link on there, and then I believe we have 4 or 5 scholarships that people are able to have their children apply for, and we have people apply for those every year, and that's something that we're very proud to be able to offer. And that's one of those things that kids know the benefits that their parents have for being union members, because they get to see it, because, hey, they're going to have, the money to put food on the table. They're going to have the money for all the necessities. But one of those extra benefits is if they want to go on and pursue higher education, then we have a little bonus there for people as well.
Nice. So, those resources are going to be available. What what's kind of like a time frame that they should look for, maybe for that website, or is there someone that they could reach out to just give you guys a call?
Well, just looking where we are on the calendar right now, we're in October, and so that'll be out shortly, because people need to start considering that now, even though we're kind of earlier in the school year. And I think I think the end times come up through about May. And so people will be able to access that, get in the applications, and with plenty of time to be able to get those in for the 2025 year.
Nice. Nice. Look forward to it. What advice or encouragement would you give drivers, employees, members, to be proactive in learning about these resources? And is there anything else that they can do?
Yeah, I mean, we have lots of forward-facing resources available. Got the website, we got our Facebook page, we got Twitter. Our Facebook page, for example, it's very highly trafficked, but understandably, there's plenty of people that are never going to come across that, even if they use Facebook, and there's obviously plenty of people that don't use Facebook. So whatever the forward-facing media that we can get out there, it's never going to be more important than members educating members. It's the old teaching somebody to fish. Once we get that information out there to one member, if they talk to 5 members, that's 5 more members than I would have been able to communicate with individually right there. And so it is really everybody looking out for everyone. But yeah, we try to do whatever we can to get that initial communication out there, and then encourage people to tell others about it.
Nice. Yeah. So word of mouth is still heavily encouraged. It's still something that I think it's important. Yeah. I mean, so what advice would you help drivers that are hesitant to approach a union for help, whether it be to ensure it works or to kind of do like a follow up, or they don't use because there's friction, there's some tension between the employer?
Well, to me, it's simple, and I saw this when I was a driver, and I'm living it now. Is at the end of the day, we're all drivers too. At Local 638, every business agent who represents members who drive at UPS has been behind the wheel for at least 10 years before we transition to our current role. So each of us have at the hall have some skills that help us, with the current position that we're in. But we also have firsthand understanding of the job that people are doing. We understand the challenges, the frustrations that people can face, and that shared background, I think, helps us, advocate for people more effectively. But I also think that's something that when people remember that, when they realize it, when they hear that, when they know that can lower the barrier and say, hey, this is just another driver I'm reaching out to, who can give me some assistance.
Nice. Oh, so that's neat to know. 10 years of experience. How do you see things changing for a union member when they're new versus having 10 years of experience?
Well, like every job, just even the job itself, I think almost any company who trains their employees, they could train about 5% of the job during the training. The other 95% of the job is learned as you go along. And that's why it's always valuable to have those senior union members to be able to take newer members under their wing, to tell them here's what the company is going to tell you what the job is, but here's what it's actually all about. Here's the challenges to look out for. Here's the things to help you grow and to become, hopefully one day, a veteran driver like myself. So yeah, I mean, it's constantly feeding into the newer and the younger employees, and the coworkers that come on board. Because once again, it's kind of what the brotherhood's all about, looking out for each other and hoping that those people that they work long enough so that they're supporting the pensions that you're going to be getting paid out when you're hopefully enjoying your retirement. So there's definitely some mutual interest there in keeping that going. And, everybody has experienced it. The people who come in the door the first day and they see somebody who's been around for 15 years, all of a sudden they've been around 15 years and that person's on their way out the door to retirement. So that's constantly cycling through. It's a natural thing, but it's really important for people to be intentional about that too. And most of the time that starts on the grassroots level of employees and members, educating members. But we take that seriously at the local too of doing what's needed to help educate members as much as possible to keep that going.
Yeah, that's huge. Those relationships. Yeah, I was thinking the first thing that they probably should do is to get the ball rolling is to just reach out to the individual, take that time to talk to them, but also maybe find a way to know someone right beside you, and that way they can benefit themselves greatly with that experience that the other person has and share it with each other. You don't have to talk someone's ear off, but you can definitely get the conversation started.
Well, and to me that's why it's important to be really comprehensive with how we try to get that information out and to connect with members. I mean, everybody has a different way they like to connect, right? Some people are very comfortable just viewing some information online. Some people like to have phone conversations. Some people like to never talk on the phone. They just want to text. Some people want to have those conversations in person. And so that's why it is important to touch on all of those bases. I think first and foremost, the most important is to have those personal connections. All of the rest of it, it's great to get the information out there, but if people don't know who they're talking to, it's hard to get that confidence and that relationship that needs to be there, or that a hope is going to be there. But you do really need a comprehensive way of reaching out to people, and I'd like to think that we've been fairly successful at that at 638. But that's why we always tell members, hey, if you think there's another way that we could be getting that information out there, let us know, because we'd love to go down that avenue as well.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people are just bombarded by a lot of information lately. There's so many podcasts out there, and there's just so much with social media that sometimes it just feels like, oh, this is a lot. But if we narrow it down to, hey, this is different. This is a different type of engagement. How would you encourage someone that's, let's say, been at the company for 15 years or so, kind of right in the middle, to take an interest in someone else or to make things better for someone else that's coming in after them?
Well, and there's really two different types of union members. There's the one that wants to come to work, do the job, go home, get paid, do it again next week, and then there's the other type of member who wants that same thing as the first member, but then they're willing to do something above and beyond that to help themselves, to help their fellow coworkers and members along. And so really it's just kind of taking that conscious choice. And for a lot of people, it is doing some of the things that we touched on earlier, where somebody might have never had experienced a workplace injury before, and then they have to go through the process. Once they go through the process, they come back to work. Is for them to share with somebody else. Hey, if you heard somebody else got hurt, get right to them and say, hey, here's some roadblocks that I came across. Here's some resources that were offered to me. Make sure you follow up with those. So everything from that to, and unfortunately, this one comes up more often than I'd like, but if people get terminated from their job and then they have to go through the process for the union to try to get their job back for them, one of the first things that I tell people when we are successful at that, and I would say by and large we are mostly successful at that, of getting people their job back if they've been unjustly terminated, is for them to take whatever it was that led up to that and to tell all their coworkers about it. Hey, here's what the company can do. Here's maybe where I was a little bit sloppy on something. It was looked at and taken way, blown out of proportion of what I did or what I intended. But here's what the consequence was, and you don't want to be in that position. So, we encourage people all the time that when they go through something, make sure you're sharing it with one of your brothers too.
Yeah, that network that just keeps on buzzing. I mean, especially if it's accurate information, that's good too. Versus it being kind of a rumor mill thing too. Seems like
And that's going to be natural, and with the amount of ways that people can communicate now and the ease of communicating with people, say outside of the local that you work in, we're constantly going to be coming across information that, hey, this is done this way. I heard this is done this way at this local in California. Why aren't we doing it here? Well, I can guarantee you there's somebody at that local in California that they could see something that's going on here in North Dakota and Minnesota at local 638 and say, hey, how come we're not doing it like we have there? We have the contract, but then we also have, the ways, the practices, and the individual riders and the things that go along into that kind of make up what happens with those day-to-day contractual decisions. But you know what? It's really easy to be able to share that information. And we always encourage people to do that, right? Like, hey, get out there, talk to your brothers and sisters who are out doing the job with you somewhere else in the country. One of the best things to do is to see that, it's not just the company here that's doing this practice or treating us like that. We're all kind of have a shared experience.
Yeah. And sometimes it's, but we can't always have the positive. I guess part of life. And, what if something that someone went through went really well and someone else tried it and it didn't go the same way? What would you say to those individuals?
Well, and this goes back to we take everything on individually, right? Yes, we have the contract that provides the guidance of how things are supposed to be done, but in almost every situation, there's different factors that influence the direction something can go. And that's one of the best things about having an active local. It can also be one of the difficult things about having an active local is, lots of good things can happen and people can hear about those things and say, hey, that's how I hope my situation goes if I get in that situation. But everyone brings something different to the table. And almost every time that I've been through a termination hearing, I've been through hundreds of termination hearings, is that, the conversation that you have with the employee leading up to that, the member leading up to that, it's never, I would say in almost every case I've ever come across, it's never somebody trying to twist the story to make it sound better for themselves, but they're always kind of have their own point of view of how they're looking at it. And by the time they get into that termination hearing, and some of the facts come out, it's like, oh, okay, I understand the full picture of what's being looked at here, but that's going to be entirely different from the next time somebody else is in that situation. There's always going to be different factors. And so while it's important to people to share those, shared events and things that happen, everyone just has to remember that, every situation's individual, and we just try to seek the best outcome possible.
I think so. You would think, you got to fight harder for the same result. It's like, man, how come I didn't get those same results? I know it's like, wow, it's like, I don't know. So yeah, it's a tough thing to juggle, like you said there. And that's where you guys come in and you're able to help out and clarify a lot of that stuff. So don't be afraid to go to your steward or your union local hall. So that's good.
Absolutely.
Yeah. See, also as industry involved, do you see the union playing a bigger role in helping companies adapt to change, or whether technology or regulations, maybe even in driver safety? Where do you see that headed? We're already there, or is it something else?
Yeah, I mean that's one of those things that we kind of see where technology is going, right? We kind of see where automation's going, where AI is going, you know, and ultimately it's going to lead to fewer jobs. I'm I get as excited about new technology as anyone, but not if it jeopardizes people's livelihoods or compromises safety on the roads. We've all heard the the kind of anecdotal story of the buggy whip company who thought that they were essential until, a car passed them on the road. So unions must be proactive, I think, in two areas. One is to obviously take care of its members, right? Safeguard their livelihoods and to protect the safety of the public. But secondly, is to be prepared for when those changes inevitably come. So if automation is starting to creep into our industry, and it is, into the driving industry, the warehouse industry, then we need to be developing strong contractual language so that should somebody's job be displaced by automation, that the company is compelled to retrain them into an equally high-paying job that's going to offer them the same retirement benefits and every other thing. So you definitely need to be proactive about that. And I mean, it's really no different to me with the technology side as the regulation side. I mean, unions need to be proactive for better or for worse. And I know a lot of people have different views about that, but unions need to be proactive in all levels of government as well to ensure that we have a voice in shaping those regulations that will impact the industry. Because if we can't let those regulations be dictated by the companies that our members work for, the company is always going to prioritize the bottom line. So it's crucial that we as unions, we as individual union members, do the work that's needed to protect our safety and our livelihoods at all costs.
It sounds like that contract is important, and automation should be some language in there that protects jobs or helps protect individuals. I mean, that's huge. What was that like for you to going there and advocating for all those proposals and trying to get those implemented? I mean, you're flying a lot and spending a lot of time away from home. And can you share a little bit with the listeners on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, honestly, the thing that's most gratifying, but also the thing that was a great motivator. Yeah, in a lot of the flying, a lot of the endless meetings, going through stuff, is that I am literally getting to be there on behalf of the members who aren't there. Right, members. We went out and visited all 27 UPS locations across Minnesota and North Dakota leading up to negotiations. We had around 1,600 proposals that came in. And so we were hearing directly from the members what their priorities were that they wanted accomplished. Now, of course, some of that comes across as a wish list, but there was a lot of those things that were common across the board that people wanted addressed. So, for example, I mean, I can give you a specific example is that for package car drivers, one of the most common thing that they were asking for in this contract was a change so that we could have language put in place so that they couldn't be compelled to work a sixth day in the week. During COVID and the times leading up past that, the company just got in the regular practice of, let's not hire any people. Or we're having trouble hiring people, whatever the equation was in different centers. And then they would just simply force in drivers for a sixth day. Well, drivers are used to getting used and abused right around peak, right around the Christmas season. But that's not what they signed up for, 12 months out of the year. And so that was one of the most common proposals. And so that was definitely my mindset, especially going to the central region negotiations, where we knew that we would be able to have some say in that, and along with the national negotiations, in that I knew going there that if strong language wasn't put in there to protect the ability for the company to not be able to force people on a sixth day, that local 638 members weren't going to support it. And so while, yes, there's a comprehensive way of that, you have to look at the going ons of all the things at the contract. But going on in the back of my mind the entire time was, hey, I know what the priorities of 638 members are, and we need to make sure that those are heard and accomplished. And I'm happy to say that by and large that they almost all were. And so that's why it's important for members to make those proposals, because those are the very things that we're going there to argue for, you know, at the bargaining table with the company, and successfully made many of those changes.
Well, what was that like? The bargaining table.
Well,
Was it pretty heated or? Oh.
it's one thing to see Sean O'Brien on TV giving an interview, or sitting before a congressional hearing, and the persona that he has in that environment. It's another thing to get to sit 10 feet away from him and see him give it to the company at the negotiating table. And that was just one of those things where I was able to come back each week, talk to members, um, and with a high degree of confidence that I knew where things were going, because the lead negotiator that we had at our side of the table, we knew that he was going to go in there and get us the best contract possible.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's huge. That's an eye opener. I mean, man, that's a lot of time being put into that. Especially with a lot of the actionable things that was done to draw attention to it as well, to get people to see, hey, this is important. There's individuals out there that aren't able to make ends meet because of how the company's treating them. So, I mean, that was I didn't know it was that bad. So, yeah, the part
Well,
time
and that's kind of the one of the things that happens with union contracts, right? Is you want to go in and get a successful contract because you want to be able to raise up all of the people who are in that industry who are not, who don't have the benefit of a union contract in the workplace. You want to raise everyone up else around you. And I can tell you that every single contract that we negotiate at 638, the principles that we're bringing into that are, hey, we had this and this success at the negotiating table with UPS. Now we might be going into a smaller company. We're not going to achieve that sort of gain, but we know the type of results that can happen. And guess what? Those companies know it too.
Nice, nice. Do you find that drivers are more comfortable coming to the union after experiencing difficult situations, or just even seeing the engagement that you guys have with the company, and saying, man, I got someone on my side to help out, to have that proactive engagement?
Yeah, and it all does come down to relationships, right? I mean, if the union member doesn't know who the people are that are fighting for them, first of all, with their steward, right? The person who's working right alongside them, to their business agent, to the rest of the people at the union hall. If they don't know who they are, it just doesn't have the same effect as it does when, hey, I know I got Scott Wilkie going in to go kick some ass in my building today. I know I got the rest of the business agents and the stewards and the people that I see down the line. I know that we're all working together to go accomplish the same the same thing and the same goal. So it starts with relationships, but then it kind of continues on with people seeing the results, right? People see the results, and I can tell you, here's an example. Probably going back 5-6 years, there's a type of grievance that a package car driver at UPS can file. It's called the 9-5 grievance. It's basically saying that they want protection against working, not working too much overtime. Going back about 5 years though or so, nobody filed this type of grievance. Not that that problem didn't come up, but people never wanted to be the person who was going to go out there and be like, hey, if I got 50 coworkers in my workplace here, I don't want to be the one person who's filing this type of grievance and drawing attention to myself. Well, that started changing though once people kind of collectively came together and start, so if you have a work group of 50 people and 10 people go in and file that grievance, well, all of a sudden the next 10 people who definitely wouldn't have filed had it only been one or two, they see, hey, we're on this all together. This isn't as scary as I thought it might be. we can go together with the confidence that we're speaking with one voice. And now that's, there's plenty of people that had never had to file a grievance before in a package car center that are very familiar with the grievance process now. But it really all started with those few people who had the courage to do it in the beginning, and it spread to everyone else.
Like that. That's a great message. You hear about somebody going through something, and then, they say, "Hey man, can you help me out with this?" And they go, "Oh no, I'm good. I'm good." What message would you tell those individuals that say, you hear about your brother going through something, and then when it's come time for action, they say, "I'm good. I don't want to." How would you help
Right.
them with that conversation?
Well, and unfortunately, and this touches a lot of different aspects of life, and it touches the situation you're describing of right now. Is that for a lot of people, it's hard for them to feel invested in a situation until it happens to them personally, or to somebody that they care about, or a friend, a close friend, or whatnot. And so, yeah, there's that sense of individualism that is inherent with any group, right? Hey, we're all individuals. We're all coming from our own lives. I see these people for 10 minutes a day when I'm punching in. I don't see them the rest of the day. But it's that small amount of time. It's seeing those people, knowing that you're going through a collective experience, that that once that ball starts rolling, then it is that much easier for people to feel invested in it. Because, but you're right though, is that there is kind of that sense sometimes of people saying, well, hey, it's not affecting me. Why should I care about it? Why should I do anything above and beyond what is affecting me? Well, unfortunately, eventually it might affect you, and when it does, we hope that you're prepared to be able to react, because the other people already showed the way of how that can get done and get accomplished.
Yeah, I mean, that's important. That's really good. Highlighting that, just, it may not work out, but don't throw your hands up, because you kind of circle back to those relationships and keep building those relationships with each other, because you might need that individual down the road. That's how it works as a union. If we're all prepared to go headstrong for a contract, that's the bigger tackle. We want to tackle that, but then what about the small tackles? We got to stick together for those as well. We can't we can't win everything, but but you definitely can pursue it with the right attitude. I think that's gonna be huge.
Well,
Um,
and
the
that's why
whole-
it's important to have an active membership, because if you have a work group where, say, it's just the steward who's the only voice for the members, and they're the ones who make a racket, they're the ones who cause a stink when they see something happening. That's good. That's what you want stewards to do. But if that manager knows that they have 20 people who are active, who are looking for violations of the contract, who are in tune with what's going on, then they're going to be a lot more wary about doing something foolish if they know that there's 20 people looking out for that rather than just one. And so that's why an active membership is so important. It's not simply for a rah-rah, hey, we're all union members, this is exciting. No, it's about creating a better environment in your normal workday. And a lot of that just simply comes by the fact of being able to have the company know that, hey, these union members, that they don't just pay dues and take their paycheck and go home and do it again next week. They're looking out for each other, and that's what's important.
Nice. Do you anticipate any challenges or opportunities um, that the union will need to address in the coming years? I know you mentioned something about automation. Is there any other topics that you want to touch on?
Well, one of the more common things that we were seeing in this last set of negotiations for the UPS contract, but I'm seeing it in many other places as well, is younger people are coming in expecting a better work-life balance. Now, unfortunately, a lot of people, they'll shit on the new generation coming in saying, hey, they're lazy, they don't want to work, they want everything handed to them. Well, guess what? Generations have always thought about that, about the next generation coming in. And the way I look at it is that this generation that's coming into the workforce now, yeah, that is definitely an expectation of theirs. That's definitely something that they do want. That's a priority that they're asking for and that they expect from their employer. But as I look at it, maybe we kind of went a little too far the other way. Yeah, we want to make as much money as possible. We want people to have the highest economic potential possible. But you know, it's good to be able to have time at home with your family. It's good to be able to stay fresh and to do the things that you enjoy, just as simply a human, right? And so maintaining that work-life balance, that I think that's going to be one of those things going forward that people are going to have a higher expectation of. And thankfully, the new generation of workers who's coming in with that expectation, they're leading the charge on that.
Nice. Yeah, majority does rule. Unfortunately, they're the ones that are hurt the most. So, what would you say? Kind of off topic, maybe a little bit, but what would you, I guess, try to help your local focus on? What message would you give them as to saying, hey, we got a couple more years before we need to focus on a certain thing or one thing? And what would you encourage them to focus on?
Right. And, this is going to be a slightly generic answer, but at the end of the day, it's what's absolutely necessary for that to happen there's two different types of organizing for unions. There's external organizing. There's, and that's getting out to new work groups, trying to get them signed up as union members, trying to get a union contract in their workplace, and helping them to enjoy all the benefits that can come with that. But the other type of organizing is internal organizing. And that's getting people who are already union members educated, excited about what they're doing, and willing to be involved in that process. And so that internal organizing is something that we're really going to be focusing on at Local 638, of saying, hey, we already have, 5,000 members here, plus we have 4,000 plus UPSers who are all working for this one company. Let's make sure that they have all the tools they need to help push this forward, to help move this forward. And so you do need to be very intentional about that. A lot of that does come from initiatives that come from the union hall for just trying new things to see what sticks, to see what resonates with the members. But it's extremely important, because otherwise people kind of get stagnant with how they think things are going. And then when those new challenges and problems arise, if you're trying to activate union members at that point, you're already too late. But if you do that work of internal organizing, of getting people educated, of getting people engaged, then when those challenges do arise, hey, you already got the team in place to meet that challenge and to try to find the most effective solutions.
Man, yeah, I echo that. That's perfect, because we can look at the past, or we can think about areas where, man, I didn't like the way that went, or that put a bad taste in my mouth, or we could focus on that in the past, but the past is not going to change. The only way we can actually change the future is if we get engaged with each other and try to change the next step of, language in the contract, and say, hey, let's not do this weeks before. Let's talk about it now. Yeah,
absolutely.
That's huge. And I applaud yourself and, Scott, coming on the podcast and spreading that word. And you guys have shown that you do whatever it takes to help the member get engaged. You do a very good job of that, of letting people know that, hey, I'm not trying to just take a seat here in this position and just ride it out, right, to the sunset. Let's make a difference while I'm here. I mean, that's so encouraging to see. I appreciate that, man. That's awesome.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, man. So, is there anything else you'd like to share with the listeners? Information about local 638, or even if local 120 is working on some things. I know they're pretty close by as well. That you help listeners understand. Maybe they can also listen to this podcast, or they can share that information with each other as well.
No, absolutely. And we do work closely with the other locals around us. Local 120 has been a great local to work with. We actually share some workplaces that we have both have members at. And we have, we all have common goals of engaging and educating members. I think Scott may have touched on this before, but we've had an extremely successful initiative of getting into schools, of high schools, of going to career days and educating the next generation who's coming up already real fast about the possibilities that are out there as that union jobs can offer. Hey, I'm college educated. My wife is. Scott is. You know what? A whole hell of a lot of people at UPS have college educations, but at the end of the day, people are going to do what puts food on the table. And for a lot of people, going into debt to get that college degree isn't going to make sense for them at the end of the day. So educating that next generation about what's coming up is important, and we've been really excited about that. Want that to continue to grow. We've been putting a lot of effort, and we will continue to put a lot of effort into getting members involved who might not always have felt that their voices have been heard as loudly as what's seen as the majority. Well, we have ways for people to get involved in the Teamsters National Black Caucus, the local 638 Women's Committee, Minnesota Teamsters Pride, which focuses on LGBTQ members. There's a whole a whole lot of different ways that we're looking to engage members who, might feel they've been left on the sidelines, and say, hey, this union's for you too. You got a place in it, and you're an important part of helping that to go forward. And
Caucus.
lastly, it's just
What's the caucus? A lot of people may not understand that term because it's kind of an older term.
yeah,
Maybe
no, it is.
don't know
It is an old term, and thanks for bringing that up, because there's a lot of terms that we use. Solidarity and brotherhood and caucus, that are kind of those old school union terms that I know we still kind of throw around every once in a while. No, so like the Teamsters National Black Caucus. It was originally created to help get African Americans involved in union leadership, of training people to be able to get involved, and that's still the project and the goal today. And so we have a local chapter here in Minnesota that's active, and they have yearly conventions and get people involved, and that continued process of education and getting people engaged. So that's through that's the caucus there, and there's a national LGBTQ caucus as well, and then we have our local group here in Minnesota, where we just kind of connect with that and connect with the goals that they're looking at getting done nationally.
Man, that's great. That's a lot of stuff that people can focus on instead of I just feeling like there's nothing there available. There's a lot available for people to get engaged. So I appreciate that, highlighting those. And you've seen a good response from those or those groups, and or people trying to join those caucus or committees.
Well, I mean, that comes down to simply one of those that people don't know if they can get involved unless they know about it. And we've been trying to do a better job of letting people know that those things are available, that they're accessible. And like you touched on earlier, people have a whole lot of information coming their ways, and coming their way from all sorts of places. And so, yeah, we definitely try to get as much information out there as possible. But at the end of the day, once again, comes down to word of mouth, and that's why you can have all the technology in the world, but we still rely on that as important, and of getting out the word from member to member about knowing that things are out there and available, and we continue to do that in whatever way possible.
Is there travel involved with those?
Yep, there's national events that take place. But also, we do have for each of those, there are local events that take place where it is just simply focused on, the people in the area. Although they do have, yes, the yearly gatherings that happen nationally for each of those things.
Nice. Oh man, so you've given people a lot to think about. Hopefully they hear the message and take it to heart. Just even see that, hey, I can get to know Jonathan a little better, So yeah, I got Jonathan out there fighting for me, and he's making a change for a lot of people, making dreams come true.
Well, I can speak, on behalf of everyone else down at the Union Hall that we all dedicate our lives to be able to make this happen. And we got a lot of smart people there. We got a lot of people with a lot of passion. I always think that I'm going to work a little bit harder, and care a little bit more than everyone else. But thankfully, everyone else thinks that same thing, I think. And so, at the end of the day, it's all about serving the members. I have a plaque in my office. It says always for the member. And at the end of the day, if you're not doing that, you might as well go home, because that's what it's all about.
Nice. That's awesome. Now, Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us today, sharing the insights. It's incredibly valuable to hear your story, learn more about how Union supports the drivers, the members. We thank you, from our listeners to you, and those all down there at the Union Hall as well. So thank you, the listeners, for tuning in. This is another episode of That's Delivered. And if you have any questions about Teamster Local 638, Jonathan, you can help them with that. Where should they look?
Yeah, they can search for Teamsters 638 on Facebook or Twitter, or they can go to teamsters638.com and find our website, where they'll find all sorts of information.
Awesome. Teamster638.com. Perfect. Those are resources available that they're constantly going to be working on to keep those up to date as well for you guys. So, as always, don't forget to follow us on social media for updates on future episodes. And if you have any ideas or for guests or topics that you'd like to hear, or just reach out, and we'll be more than happy. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, stay safe out there on the road and keep on delivering. Appreciate you coming on board, Jonathan, and we appreciate your insights.
Thanks a lot, Ray.
Are you a trucker looking for a safe and reliable place to park? Look no further than Truck Parking Club. With locations across the country, we've got the perfect spot waiting for you, whether it's daily or long-term parking. And right now, use promo code DELIVERED at checkout for an exclusive discount. Reserve your spot today at truckparkingclub.com and drive stress-free, knowing your parking is covered.